Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, we're going to be going through the most popular new Commander cards of 2020, starting off with number 30 and going all the way up to number 21. So obviously there will be 2 more episodes following this one, going from number 20 to 11 and then 10 to 1. Now originally I was going to do all 30 in one episode, but then I was talking way too much on each card, and then I was trying to cut stuff, and I was just like, you know what? We'll just do multiple episodes so this one isn't like 45 minutes. Bear with me, okay? I'm trying my best. And one more thing before we get into these cards today, a quick disclaimer. There is absolutely no perfect method to do this. First off, these rankings are based on EDH rec stats, which are not perfect, but they're the best that we have to go on. Also, sets that came out earlier in 2020 definitely have an advantage over newer sets. And one more thing, these rankings are going to be based off the number of decks and not the percentage of decks. So basically, what cards are in the most decks is what we're going on. Again, so there's no perfect data, and we don't have a perfect way to look at the data that we do have, but it's still fun to look at. So sit back and relax, and let's jump into it. So let's start things off with number 30 with Teferi's Ageless Insight, which comes in at 6,194 decks. Teferi's Ageless Insight is a legendary enchantment for 2 blue, and it says if you would draw a card except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. This card is fantastic in decks that are already looking to draw a lot of cards. It's basically a Thought Reflection that costs 3 less mana, but it has a slight downside that's not really that much of a downside. The only downside is that unlike Thought Reflection, it's not going to double up your draw during your draw step, but again, that's definitely worth saving you 3 mana. This card is absolutely absurd in the right deck and can provide you an insane amount of card advantage. But now let's move on to number 29 with Heliod's Sun Crowned. Heliod's number, which is 6,278, is a combination of it being in the 99 as well as it being the commander. With over 900 commander decks built around Heliod, it's currently the number 2 mono white commander. Heliod is a 5/5 god with indestructible that costs 2 and a white. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod isn't a creature, but whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. And by paying 1 and a white, another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So Heliod benefits you from gaining life, so it fits in a lot of life gain decks. But most notably, as a commander, it combos with something like Walking Ballista, so yeah, it can win pretty quickly with that too. But now let's move on to number 28 with Feed the Swarm. Feed the Swarm's from one of the most recent sets, but yet it still has 6,368 decks. And that number is just going to continue to rise because it allows black to do something that it really hasn't been able to do yet. It's a sorcery for 1 in a black, and it says destroy target creature or enchantment opponent controls, you lose life equal to that permanent's converted mana cost. That's a small price to pay for mono black now being able to deal with enchantments. So because this is basically the only card that can actually deal with enchantments in black, this is essentially an auto-include in mono black as well as Rakdos, because red and black have historically really struggled at dealing with enchantments. And again, the more time that goes by, that number is just going to continue to rise. Next up, let's move on to number 27 with Ruinous Ultimatum. Currently it's at 6,440 decks, and it's a sorcery that costs, get ready for it, red, white, black. So 7 mana in total with a very specific color requirement, but it's a very powerful effect. It says, destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. So yeah, that's an incredibly potent one-sided board wipe. It's kind of like a Mardu Cyclonic Rift, but without the bouncing and instead of destroying. Well, okay, yeah, no, it's not at instant speed, and no, it's not flexible. But come on, bear with me, it's kind of like a Cyclonic Rift-ish. Regardless, there's a reason that this sees so much play, because it sets your opponent so far back and it sets you way ahead. But now let's move on to number 26 with Balanced Recovery, which comes in at 6,443. This is a fantastic MDFC, otherwise known as a modal dual-face card. The front side is Balanced Recovery, which is a sorcery for 2 and a green, and it says return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So yes, this is a slightly overcosted regrowth since it costs 1 more than the original regrowth. but it has a lot of flexibility because the backside is Balagad Sanctuary, which is a land that you can play. Now that land isn't really anything special, it comes into play tapped and taps for a green, but you got the option. This card is incredibly flexible and the opportunity cost of putting this card in your deck is incredibly low. Pretty much every deck's going to want some form of recursion, so basically letting one of your land slots do that for you is huge. Next up, let's move on to number 25 with Hull Breacher. The infamous Hull Breacher from Commander Legends comes in at 6,444 decks. So sorry Balagad Recovery, you just got beat by this one. Anyways, Hull Breacher is a 3/2 Merfolk Pirate with Flash that costs 2 and a blue. It says if an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead you create a treasure token. So yeah, this is basically like Notion Thief meets Smothering Tithe. Even with its current price tag of $24, it sees a ton of play. This is the kind of card that can turn a game on its head out of nowhere. If your opponent casts a big draw spell, instead you get a lot of treasure. Or if you essentially just wheel once, it's game over. Your opponents aren't getting any of their draws, and you're getting all the treasure. Speaking of draw though, let's move on to number 24 with Reconnaissance Mission. This card is from Ikoria and comes in at 6,788 decks, so quite a jump from the last one. It's an enchantment for 2 blue, and it says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, and on top of that, it's got cycling for 2. So yeah, this is just a straight up upgraded version of Coastal Piracy. Even without the ability to cycle this would still be a fantastic card. For the right deck, this can draw you an absurd amount of cards and be a fantastic draw engine. And the additional flexibility to cycle this away is never a bad thing. Next up though, let's move on to another Ikoria card at number 23 with the Ozolith, which by the way has got to be one of the best names for a card this year. Anyways, currently the Ozolith is at 7,652 decks, so yes, another big jump. It's a legendary artifact for 1, and it says whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So this kind of reminds me of Skullbriar in that it can really save your counters and utilize them still. +1/+1 counter builds are very popular in Commander, and this slots right into those decks. If you've got a creature with a lot of counters on it and it dies, you can still utilize those counters elsewhere. And of course it works with other types of counters as well, like ability counters. But yeah, at just 1 mana, it's a very low investment for decks that really want to utilize it. But now coming in at number 22, we've got Flawless Maneuver. Currently Flawless Maneuver is in 7,858 decks. It's an instant for 2 and a white, and it says if you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So Flawless Maneuver is part of an incredibly powerful cycle of cards from Commander 2020. There's 1 card for each color, and basically you can cast them for free if you've got your commander in play. And since you're playing a game of Commander and most decks revolve around their commander and you're usually going to have your commander, this is mostly a free spell. So essentially, board wipe protection for free, yeah, that's going to go in a lot of decks. Someone sees that you're tapped out and they decide to cast their board wipe to wipe everything out, and you say, my stuff's staying right here. Everyone else is set back and you're in the exact same spot, so good luck with that. But now let's move on to today's final card, coming in at 21 with Bastion of Remembrance. It's just over 8,000 decks with 8,077. It's an enchantment that costs 2 and a black, and it says when it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this card obviously slots really well into aristocrat-style strategies. Not only does it drain your opponents, but it gives you a token to help you drain your opponents. It's essentially a Zulaport Cutthroat that is a lot harder to deal with. Because again, like Zulaport Cutthroat, most of these effects come on creatures. This one comes on an enchantment, so it's more likely to stick around. And again, it gives you that nice little fodder token to make up for the fact that it's not a creature. So go ahead, put that token to good use and sacrifice it and drain your opponents. And probably do 80 other things because let's be honest, in your aristocrat style deck, you're going to have a lot of other triggers. But yeah, this one is a great card for an already incredibly popular strategy. So there's a reason that number is already high and it's going to keep getting higher. So that concludes numbers 30 through 21, so make sure you're on the lookout for the next episode that goes over numbers 20 through 11. What card's going to show up on that list? Well, tune in to find out next time! Yeah, like really old kind of, TV or radio announcer voice kind of thing. Did that work? Is that okay? Let me know in the comments below. All right. Anyways, as always, thanks again and have a good one.